Ideal mesmo para o mundo atual seria fazer o ensino médio junto com o curso técnico, certo? É no Senac que o aluno tem autonomia de verdade, formação cidadã, foco na diversidade, preparação para o Enem, material didático sem taxas e muito mais. Na real, tem tudo que você precisa para se sentir preparado para a vida. Seja para entrar no mundo do trabalho ou te ajudar a decidir o que fazer na faculdade. Quer saber? Senac. Vem comigo! Acesse sp.senac.br/ensino-médio-técnico.
How would you like a 15% discount to my daily email, the stack of stuff, the show notes, discounts to the conference, all of that? All you need to do is text the word show to 33777. You'll get the annual subscription with a 15% discount to my daily email. You'll get the stack of stuff, the links to the show notes, discounts to the conference, and so much more. All you have to do is text the word show, SHOW, to 33777. Text show to 33777.
Welcome to the Eric Erickson Show podcast, Hour 1.
Greetings, conversationalists. Welcome. It's Eric Erickson here across the United States of America. Phone lines are open, 877-973-7425. Wherever you are, it arrives to your home tomorrow. You can order it today. There's a pre-sale discount. If you text data to 33777, you can get my new book, You Shall Be as Gods. I got the first copy. It came in this morning. It is the first bound copy. Actually, I take that back. I believe Jeff Katz, my guest host on WRV up in Richmond, I think he actually got the first copy. I think he got his copy before me, but that's okay. I have my copy. You can get your copy, You Shall Be as Gods. The whole premise is explaining this wild world we live in where everything seems to be changing so fast that it's not just the left. On the left and the right, there is this growing secularism, and that secularism is turning into a new religion. And also, for those of you who are people of faith, how do you respond to the insanity that's out there right now with all of this? If you text data to 33777, you can order a copy. It's the second link. You can subscribe to the show notes as well, but get your copy. Now, we have to begin with what happened over the weekend. I need to set the stage for you. We are in a weird, wild, increasingly dangerous world. And I was shocked by the videos from this weekend. I actually, it takes a lot to shock me, but I saw them and assumed it was Europe, and it wasn't. It was Los Angeles. Hamas supporters waving Palestinian flags showed up outside a Jewish synagogue, Congregation Adas Torah, and the Jews were attacked. Congregation Adas Torah, that means Congregation of the Bible in Los Angeles. Noah Pollack, who I know, who writes for Commentary and The Free Beacon, is written at National Review, he was there for an event. Let me read you his tweet. The LAPD let the Hamas supporters take over the sidewalk in front of the shul and block its entrance. In fact, LAPD had formed a cordon around the front of the building to keep Jews out and Hamas supporters in. I tried to enter with my kids through the front door and was turned away not by Hamas supporters, but by the Los Angeles Police Department. Anyone who wanted to attend had to use a secret back entrance. The mayor and police department are an absolute disgrace. It's clear the police have been instructed to help the Democratic Party's street animals do their thuggery. They were definitely not there to protect the right of Jews to enter their shul. In fact, other people who were there said the Los Angeles Police Department allowed terrorist supporters to occupy both sides of the synagogue outside of it, while Jewish counter-protesters were prohibited. Only a narrow protected lane allowed access, and people had to go through the back door. It's not black Americans in the 1940s and 50s having to go through back doors. These are Jews in Los Angeles in 2024. Having to go through back entrances of buildings, not allowed through the front door. Now, this is notable. because Vice President Kamala Harris's husband, Doug Emmer, is the first Jewish second gentleman. He's the first second gentleman of the United States. He's also Jewish. And he had this to say in an interview.
She's the toughest person out there.
She's tough.
Oh, she's so tough. It just bounces right off of her.
And as for second gentleman Doug Emhoff, he is not California dreaming. Do you ever think, well, you know, if things don't work out, we could always move back here and be just fine?
We're going to win this election. We have to win this election. Literally, our country and our world depends on us winning this election. That's what's going to happen.
Doug Emhoff, first Jewish second gentleman, first second gentleman. Doug Emhoff says we have to win this election. We have to. Our history, the world depends on us winning this election. He's in California, where Jews are literally being hunted in the streets by progressive activists on Joe Biden's side. And he thinks that Joe Biden needs to win the election. For what? So Jews can be hunted more ruthlessly? That's what's happening here. This is, it's wild to see. I can't actually play you the video of it because the profanity would come over the microphone. It is wild. And the Los Angeles mayor, and her statement, she says it's abhorrent and unacceptable, but I want to read for you the statement. Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass today issued the following, quote, today's violence in the Pico Robertson neighborhood today was abhorrent, and blocking access to a place of worship is unacceptable. I've called on LAPD to provide additional patrols in the Pico Robertson community, as well as outside of homes of worship throughout the city. I'll be meeting with Chief Coy tomorrow to further address the safety of Angelenos. This wasn't outside houses of worship. It was outside a synagogue exclusively. They were not outside a Mormon tabernacle. They were not outside a Baptist church. They were not outside a mosque. They were outside a Jewish synagogue. Today's violence blocking access to a place of worship, they were blocking Jews from going to synagogue. She's going to station additional patrols outside houses of worship. There's only a couple of them you have to station police outside of, except it was the police who were enabling Hamas to do this. That's left unsaid in Karen Bass's statement, is that it was the police who were making Jews go through back doors, prohibiting Jewish counter-protesters, in violation of their constitutional rights, I might add, from being present and allowing Hamas to surround the building. She says in her second paragraph, I want to be clear that Los Angeles will not be a harbor for anti-Semitism and violence. Those responsible for either will be found and held accountable. I'll be joining Councilwoman Kati Yaroslavsky, the Chief Executive Officer of the Jewish Federation, Los Angeles, Rabbi Noah Farkas, and other law enforcement and faith leaders in a community meeting as we talk about steps forward together. Merrick Garland and Joe Biden are prosecuting wheelchair-bound grandmothers for praying at abortion clinics. They're not prosecuting people for blocking Jews from entering synagogue. They are prosecuting and sending to jail, actually sending to jail, wheelchair-bound grandmothers in their 70s who prayed at abortion clinics. Alvin Bragg, the district attorney in New York, has dismissed all charges against all anti-Semitic protesters who stormed into and took over the Hamilton building on Columbia's University's campus. Not a single one of them will be prosecuted, though they trespassed, vandalized, and held hostage a building, and those inside the building could not get out. He's not going to prosecute him. He prosecuted Donald Trump. He made up some charges, concocted a story that the left wants to believe because they hate the man so bad. They found him guilty before a judge who gave money to Joe Biden into a fund that said stop Donald Trump, but they won't actually prosecute the anti-Semitic protesters who trespassed into a building, vandalized it, and wouldn't get out of it when Columbia asked them to. They dropped all charges. In Los Angeles, I'm interested to see, do they actually prosecute these individuals? Do they? Will they? Will they actually arrest anybody? If they was outside an abortion clinic, you know they would. The video is horrific. And then there's this. This is caught on video. After the protests and the harassment at the synagogue, where when Jews left the synagogue, some of them were kicked, tripped, beaten, sprayed with pepper spray. This really happened, y'all. This happened in Los Angeles this weekend. Jews leaving synagogue were beaten up and pepper sprayed by Hamas supporters, and the police did nothing. The police did nothing. And those who fled were chased through the streets. There's video of it. We put in the show notes. Hezbollah and Hamas supporters hunted and bludgeoned Jews in the streets. They're hunting Jews in the streets. They're hunting Jews in the streets of Los Angeles, y'all. Never again is supposed to mean never again. When Donald Trump was president of the United States, the left had a big campaign. They said, punch a Nazi. Punch a Nazi, they said. They consider the right Nazis. MSNBC and CNN both did ad nauseum stories about the rise of alt-right violence and white nationalists on the right, and how the FBI says that the right is a growing terror threat. Even now, there's a story about the Department of Homeland Security classifying Trump supporters as the biggest domestic threat to national security in the United States, put together by a former head of the CIA. It's real hard to punch a Nazi when it's yourself and you're chasing a Jew in the streets. That's what's happening in Joe Biden's America. And by the way, there are political ramifications for this. There actually is a story out today in Politico that Joe Biden is starting to have concerns because there are warning signs showing up in the polling. This is not Politico, it's CNN. Alarm is rising in Democratic circles that the turmoil set off by the October 7th attack by Hamas and Israel's bloody war launched in response is becoming yet another weight on President Biden's reelection, with warning signs flashing over Jewish voter support for the President of the United States. For all the attention over how the Israel-Hamas war has endangered Biden's standing with Arab Americans and progressives who have taken up the cause of the Palestinians, Jewish Americans who make up enough of the population to have determinative effect in battleground states of Pennsylvania, Michigan, Georgia, Wisconsin, and Arizona have been scrambling too. The President of the United States today released a tweet. He's going to be unavailable to the public this week. He's in debate prep, which means they're adjusting his schedule and getting his meds right for debate. He tweeted, or someone on his behalf tweeted, that it was outrageous to see what happened at the synagogue in Los Angeles. He tweeted about it. He won't come out and publicly say anything unless he can also do but Islamophobia too. He tweeted about it. He's willing to arrest people who pray at abortion clinics, and he tweets about the meanies who pepper sprayed Jews at a synagogue. We're having Charlottesville on a daily basis, and the President of the United States is doing nothing. Near me is a cookie shop, Allie's Cookies. It's by Emory University. It's on North Decatur Road in Atlanta, Georgia. Allie's Cookies at Emory. The family immigrated from Israel. And after October 7th, they made clear their support for Israel. Hamas supporters have been harassing patrons of the business, trying to block access to the business, harassing the business. This is a Jewish-owned business, a cookie shop near Emory University in Atlanta, Georgia. It's not just the progressive left on the West Coast or in New York City. In Atlanta, Georgia, a Jewish-owned cookie shop is being harassed and its patrons harassed by Hamas supporters. Don't say it's not happening in my backyard. This is my backyard. It's happening in my backyard. With a large Jewish community, and yet this is happening to them in my backyard. It's happening around the country. And when you go on television and you listen to the news, they want to talk to you about how Trump supporters are a danger to national security. Jews are being beaten up and pepper sprayed on the way into and out of synagogues across America by progressive activists who Joe Biden is coddling. If it was an abortion clinic, all these protesters would go to jail, but it's a synagogue, so they get their charges dismissed by left-wing prosecutors. This should be unacceptable to everyone.
Tem momento na carreira que precisamos dar passo além. É hora de fazer uma pós-graduação. Só que muitas vezes o custo pesa no bolso, inviabilizando tudo. Com a pós-graduação do Senac, você não tem esse problema. Cursos com até 50% de desconto e muito mais tempo para pagar. TCC opcional, modelo flexível com aulas presenciais e online e alguns cursos com apenas 12 meses de duração. Não tem mais desculpa, hein? Saiba mais em sp.senac.br/pós-graduação.
Welcome. It is Eric Erickson here, and I am delighted to have you with me. The phone number is 877-973-7425. Should you want on the program, Greg, you're going to be up first. Welcome to the show. How are you?
Hey, Eric. Happy Monday.
You too.
I look at headlines, a bunch of websites and apps every morning, and I noticed this story on CNN this morning. And, you know, the gaslighting and selective reporting is amazing. I tried to look it up on the app again, and it has essentially been buried. Pulled it up on the CNN website, and the headline is Pro-Palestinian Protest Outside L.A. Synagogue Criticized as Anti-Semitic After Street Fights with Pro-Israeli Protesters. And the only mention of the word blocking access to the synagogue is the mayor's quote. And again, we're not getting the clear picture. And I got an 18-year-old son who told me the other day, you know, I don't watch any news, Dad. They're all gaslighting us. They all have an angle. And so he's not on Twitter. I don't allow him yet, but I'm on Twitter, and that's where I go for my news. I follow established reporters like Trey Yingst and others, and that's my source for news now versus any mainstream media, because you can't trust any of them, especially the left, but you can't trust a soul on mainstream media.
You can't, and I got to tell you, I'm also, and this is relevant to my book, there's a passage in it that even more and more the left and the right both they're into pushing their narratives, leaving out facts that might work against their narratives. And you and I are probably more prone to find news on the right by virtue of the people we follow on social media, on Twitter and the like. But yeah, I mean, this story, I'm looking at CNN's front page right now. It is buried at the bottom of their site. And of course, their argument will be, well, it's old news. It happened yesterday. But really, it's a pretty big story that they have chosen to rapidly bury on their website. And that's in and of itself very telling. This is only going to get worse. You know, crowdfunding sites were a good idea when they first started, but politics has ruined those, and the left has encouraged shutdowns of right-wing fundraising opportunities and defunding efforts. Well, so Old Glory Bank, you know, they started because they were concerned about cancellations of the right at banks. They have now started Old Glory Alliance. It's crowdfunding without the politics. Old Glory Alliance is the ideal place to raise funds for patriotic causes like supporting a veteran, disaster relief, supporting a friend's medical journey. And since it's powered by Old Glory Bank, the account for your campaign is FDIC insured up to $250,000. While anyone can contribute to your fundraiser, you got to be an Old Glory Bank customer to start an Old Glory Bank, Old Glory Alliance campaign. It takes just 8 minutes to open your account at oldglorybank.com. Old Glory Alliance, fundraising, flag raising, freedom raising. Check it out, oldgloryalliance.com, oldgloryalliance.com. Old Glory Bank, member FDIC, equal housing lender, terms and conditions apply. Go check out oldgloryalliance.com today.
você ama ter mais flexibilidade para estudar. Use a sua nota do Enem e venha para Anhembi Morumbi. Aqui você pode escolher qual modalidade se adapta melhor à sua rotina: presencial, semipresencial ou ensino à distância. Tudo com uma metodologia inovadora e prática desde o início do curso. Descubra por que milhares de alunos amam estudar aqui. Acesse anhembi.br e garanta a sua vaga mesmo antes do Enem. Anhembi Morumbi. Aqui tudo acontece.
Hello there, welcome. It is Eric Erickson across the United States of America. My book is out tomorrow. Please consider ordering it. You can text the word DATA, D-A-T-A. You just text that to 33777. We'll be working on book signings and things like that. But yeah, it'd make me look good with the publisher, but I think you'll like it. Some of it will sound very familiar to longtime listeners. Repackaged my monologues to a degree, but it fleshes things out more. And one of those issues is, the title of it is You Shall Be as Gods. And essentially, what's happening is progressives on the left and the right, and we cannot deny that there is a progressivism festering on the right. And they are postmodern, post-Christian. They are essentially forming themselves into a new religion. Think about it. They have by faith beliefs. It is by faith, not by science, that a boy can become a girl. It is by faith. It is by faith that the world is going to warm to the point that we all go extinct. They have their own priests, whether it's the abortionists or the environmental zealots. They have their own liturgies, singing Imagine, even at Rosalind Carter's funeral. Imagine There's No Heaven, sung at Rosalind Carter's funeral. Still blows my mind they sang that at a funeral. They have their own rituals. The Just Stop Oil protesters who stormed the 18th hole yesterday. I feel bad for Tom Kim, young guy. It's his birthday the other day. He and Scotty Scheffler actually share the same birthday. And so they're at the Travelers Insurance golf tournament yesterday. It's a tied game between Tom Kim and Scotty Scheffler. They're on the 18th hole. If Tom Kim makes his putt, he wins. They do not have to play a playoff round. And the Just Stop Oil protesters, right as he's about to putt, they storm the 18th green. They're tackled by police. I'm sure Scotty Scheffler got PTSD seeing a group of police officers charging the field, but nonetheless, it's something to keep in mind that we're seeing a new religion crop up, and it takes the form of a lot of other religions. But ironically, and this is part of the book, is it's actually the resurgence of a very old religion. In fact, what's remarkable about it, this age we live in, is that when you pay attention to the pagan beliefs that existed before the birth of Christ, a lot of those ideas are the same ideas being espoused now, with a little bit of new packaging for sure. But it's the same old ideas just resurfacing, and that's what the book is about. So if you text DATA to 33777, you can get the book, and also how do you grapple with it? How do you deal with it? What are the solutions for it? They're there. Now, this is all very related to a story today. This is from the Daily Mail, and it frustrates me that the news organizations are embracing the pronoun game, and so it's somewhat convoluted to read, but just listen to this. This is where I'm going to probably get the hate mail of the day from the left. This is from the Daily Mail. 2 North Carolina parents have slammed a charter school for revealing to the school community their 6-year-old twins were non-binary and gender fluid after discovering an online hate campaign. Transgender and non-binary Mortellus, 42, who did not want to reveal their full identity, did not think there would be an issue for their children at the Thomas Jefferson Classical Academy in Forest City, North Carolina, when they toured the school with their spouse, Joe. During the visit, Mortellus asked if there were any gender-neutral bathrooms because one of their children is non-binary and the other is gender fluid. The couple said they were assured that although the school is still in the process of adding an ADA-compliant family bathroom, there are already single-stalled restrooms in each classroom. But about a month later, Mortellus found out their children's gender identity had leaked to parents, many of whom spoke out against the school for enrolling their children. Mortellus, an author who describes themselves on Instagram as a witch, necromancer, mortician, and medium, said they thought the school was accommodating when they first toured the charter school. They also asked about the school uniforms and how children are sorted. I noted that my children, regardless of assigned gender, enjoyed wearing skirts and dresses frequently, and I was informed that the uniform policy was non-gendered and that it would not be an issue, Mortellus wrote. Y'all, I'm going to tell you something that you may not want to hear. These parents are imposing their mental issues onto their children. A 6-year-old is not non-binary and gender fluid. It doesn't take a rocket scientist or even a biologist to know that. You know that. We happen to be dealing with a parent who claims to be trans, non-binary, Wiccan necromancer witch. And guess what? The children are like that too. Is it not weird? Has anybody else noticed the pattern here where this sort of self-absorption, and let's be clear here, this is a kind of narcissistic self-absorption when, I'm going to stand out by declaring myself a witch, necromancer, transgender, and non-binary. Look at me, and I'm going to use non-singular pronouns. We're going to go with their and themselves because we spend all this time with the left complaining about Donald Trump being a narcissist. Here, the narcissists live. You have twins who are non-binary and gender fluid. No, they're not. Your children wish to be loved and your children wish to impress and dazzle you. And guess how your children have decided to impress and dazzle you? And Joe, your spouse, poor old Joe. I'm sorry, but it's just not real stuff. And to the extent your kids now have psychological issues, guess what? You're going to have traumatize your children. Kids, 6-year-olds are not gender fluid and non-binary. They wouldn't even know what that was if the parents weren't obsessed about it. Forest, North Carolina, you should know, is a pretty conservative area of North Carolina. Forest City. Forest City is outside of, let's see, I'm trying to look. It's south. It's just north of Spartanburg on the way towards Gastonia on Highway 74. Outside, it's between Asheville and Charlotte. Pretty conservative part of the state. And these people showed up at a charter school. And poor old Joe himself looks fairly like hippie but normal. I'm sorry, y'all. This is a level of narcissism that is being imposed on the kids. Now, related to this, the Sixth Circuit, the Supreme Court has agreed to take up a review of their decision on trans surgery bans. This is related to a lawsuit. The states of Kentucky and, what's the other state involved in the case? They banned trans surgeries for minors. And the states, I believe it's Tennessee is the other state. The state says that there are, Tennessee and Kentucky. The state says there are legitimate reasons for the state to ban these things as we hash it out of the democratic process. The Biden administration is saying, no, you must allow permanently disfiguring trans surgeries for minors. I want to read for you some of what is, this is from the majority opinion, which is a very well-reasoned case. As doctors, legislators, and citizens work through the risks and benefits of various treatments for children with gender dysphoria, lawyers and litigants debate the right standard for reviewing such constitutional challenges. Sometimes the Constitution is neutral about an issue, say whether a state should embrace policies that lean conservative or progressive, regulatory or deregulatory, fiscally tight or lax, Republican or Democratic. Other times, the Constitution is not neutral about an issue, say over free speech, voting, and race discrimination. When the Constitution is neutral about an issue, legislatures have considerable discretion to regulate the matter. In that setting, the key premise of a democracy prevails, that the people's electoral representatives will identify the strengths and weaknesses of any policy and presumptively be allowed to enact it, the antidote for mistakes being the passage of time and good sense and self-interest of election-tenured public officials to fix them. When the Constitution is not neutral about the issue, skeptical judicial review applies to the law from the start. The threshold question is whether the Constitution is neutral about legislative regulations of new and potentially irreversible medical treatments for minors. The plaintiffs claim that it is not neutral on this issue under the due process and equal protection guarantees. We will consider the theories in turn. Essentially, what the court argues is that we're in this unsettled, uncharted territory where doctors have been going back and forth on the issue, so naturally states should as well. Therefore, we should allow the legislatures to decide this issue instead of judges imposing a will that cannot then be undone if minds change. The government has the power to reasonably limit the use of drugs. If it's true for adults, it's assuredly true for children. The country does not have a custom of permitting parents to obtain banned medical treatments for their children and to override contrary legislative policy judgments in the process. Any other approach would not work. If parents could veto legislative and regulatory policies about drugs and surgeries permitted for children, every such regulation, there must be thousands, would come with a springing easement. It would be good law until one parent in the country opposed it. At that point, either the parent would take charge of the regulation or the courts would. And all of this is an arena, the care of our children, where sound medical policies are indispensable. The Supreme Court's going to take up this case. The chief judge of the Sixth Circuit wrote the decision. It is extremely well-reasoned and well-argued that the courts should not rush in here where there's so much undecided policy and the rules and the scientific discoveries continue to change so much. In fact, when you look at what's happening in Europe now, the very countries that set the standards for transgender surgical care are now walking away from those for children. It's a very reasonable case. But the common underlying thread of all of this is a deep level of narcissism among the adults who are trying to impose themselves on their children in ways that could be long-term harm for their children. It's a narcissism in secular society. And the left constantly points to Donald Trump as a narcissist and never wants to look in the mirror as they advance stuff that could permanently ruin a child's life. Instead of taking it slow, they want to rush in to conform their children to their own level of narcissism. And that is a terribly dangerous thing. I just think that the court got it right. And when we see these sorts of situations with these parents, and guess what? Their 6-year-old decides they're gender non-binary or fluid. I wonder where they got that idea from. Oh, all right. We got to move on. Let me tell you about the Eden Pure Thunderstorm first. The Eden Pure Thunderstorm, you got a 3-pack. Right now, you save $200 at EdenPureDeals.com. In fact, it's been a while since I've been to the website. Let's do this. EdenPureDeals.com. No, not .co.com. Come on, Erickson. And then the website loads. You enter your host's code word, and you put in ERICK, the number 3. You click submit, and your savings are loaded into the cart. It says the Eden Pure Thunderstorm 3-pack. You get 3 for $187. You're saving $200. You're saving $200. You get them for less than $200. You get 3 of them, and they wipe out noxious odors. So they wipe out smoke odors, pet odors, litter box odors, cooking odors, musty odors, you name it. I had one in my car. I want you to know on Friday. My golf game was terrible. My cigar game was on point. It didn't stink up the car, thankfully, but I had it just in case. And it works. You go to EdenPureDeals.com. You put in the discount code ERIC3. You can wipe out those cigar odors in your car. You can plug it in with a USB cord or plug it directly into the wall. And it works. Get 3 of them for less than $200. EdenPureDeals.com. Discount code ERIC3.
Esse podcast é um oferecimento de Samsung Galaxy AI. E sabe o que mais ele te oferece? Que tal uma nova maneira de buscar na internet a partir de fotos ou do que está na sua tela? Fácil, fácil. Viu? Circulou? Encontrou. Ou quem sabe um assistente de notas para gravar reuniões, transcrever gravações e organizar, produzindo resumos eficientes. Tem tanta coisa que o Samsung Galaxy AI pode fazer por você. Clique aí no banner para descobrir o que. Galaxy AI, a inteligência artificial nas suas mãos.
Greetings. This hour of the program brought to you by First Liberty Building and Loan. Wherever your company is nationwide, First Liberty can help. If you're buying a building or building a building or buying a franchise or you need an equipment loan, First Liberty makes their own lending decisions. They tend to be very responsive with quick turnaround. And in many cases, if you've got great credit, they can move even quicker. FirstLibertyGA.com. FirstLibertyGA.com. Reach out to them. Spend 10 minutes with them. See if you're a fit for them. See if they're a fit for you. They're great people. Known the Frost for a long time. FirstLibertyGA.com. Now, we got to move on to other stuff. We'll get into the debate stuff, but I do want to mention real quick, ad nauseum today, you're going to hear about abortion because it's the anniversary of the Dobbs decision. And, of course, they were all over MSNBC this morning screaming about how women must vote for Joe Biden because their rights as a woman are under attack. Just bizarreness, but, yep, there you have it. Now, also, there was this moment on CNN. Oh, my gosh, this really happened. This was Donald Trump's press secretary on with Casey Hunt on CNN.
What do you expect from Joe Biden?
Well, first of all, it would take someone 5 minutes to Google Jake Tapper, Donald Trump, to see that Jake Tapper has consistently frequently likened President Trump to Adolf Hitler.
Ma'am, I'm going to stop this interview if you continue to attack my colleagues. I would like to talk about Joe Biden and Donald Trump, who you work for.
Yes.
If you are here to speak on his behalf, I am willing to have this conversation.
I am stating facts that your colleagues have stated in the past.
Okay,
now,
I'm sorry, guys. We're going to come back out to the panel. Caroline, thank you very much for your time. You are welcome.
Listen, lay all my cards on the table. I know I'm friends with Jake Tapper and Dana Bash, and also they have been. I mean, I've heard Jake reference the big lie, among other things, and I think that they have been critical of Donald Trump. I'm sure they think it is fair, but I think a lot of people on the right think that they probably went beyond fairness and have shown bias. And I think that Donald Trump's press secretary calling them out on CNN is amazing television. You can agree or disagree with their comments about Donald Trump that you view as critical. But I do think that if CNN's going to have the debate and host the debate, that they do open themselves up to statements made by their anchors about Donald Trump and how people view it, fairly or not. I mean, it's going to come up. And essentially, I do think what's happening this week is that the Trump team and their surrogates are making a case that Donald Trump's not going to get a fair hearing from CNN anchors. And part of that is to ensure that he does, so that they do not linger all night on the stolen election stuff. Look, it's going to come up. The stolen election stuff is going to come up. The January 6th stuff is going to come up. The question is, how does Donald Trump handle that stuff? As I said the other day, and by the way, I got lit on fire by people who don't like Donald Trump. But I think Donald Trump's response has got to be to make it about Joe Biden. Do you still think the election was stolen? Well, I'm standing here next to Joe Biden, who unfortunately is president of the United States, wrecking the economy. Will you pardon the people on January 6th? I think every case should be looked at. Look at how Joe Biden isn't prosecuting Hamas supporters in this country. He's got a path forward, depending on how creative he is when he answers this stuff. Now, when we come back, actual serious moment, we need to talk about something that is getting ignored pretty big in Washington.